Our guest in studio today is Saleem Usmani. He joins us to talk about family, religion, and the business case for diversity. Saleem, welcome to Feel Like You Belong.
Thank you, Alan. I appreciate having me on the show.
Tell us about your family's immigration history.
My parents are actually still in India, so I don't have a story to tell you that my parents immigrated. So I'm the first generation immigrated from India. And I have been in the United States since 1984. My wife, who actually was born in Pakistan, but she came to America about when she was 2 years old, and she's been here since then. So we're both Americans from different parts of the world.
You talked about being from India and Pakistan. In numerous ways, those folks are the same, linguistically, ethnically, culturally, but there's this little funny divide between them around religion.
It's religion, so I'm glad you brought up religion. I'm from the same religion that belongs predominantly in Pakistan as well. So there is a little bit of religion involved between Pakistan and India, but it's mostly about this small piece of land that they always argue about. But yeah, religion does play because...
Is that Kashmir?
It's Kashmir,
okay.
Right. That's the little piece of land that they've been fighting for over 60, 70 years. Anyhow, so getting back to the religion, yes, I'm a Muslim, and in India, I think there's only about 18%. So we belong to a minor group in
Sure.
India as well.
Sure. So talk about coming to the U.S.
The interesting story there is I had no plans to come to America. Before I can talk about how I came here, I need to tell you a little bit about my father. My father was in the 60s, one of the top athletes in India, and he went to several international meets, and including Olympics in 1964.
He was a track star.
He was a track star there. So being in the Olympics, one of the perks that they have is every Olympics they either get a pass, discounted tickets that they can go to any Olympics they want to. 1984, Los Angeles held the Olympics, and my father was coming, and casually he mentioned, "Saleem, do you want to go with me?" I'm like, "Sure, why not?" Fast forward to 2 months when it was time to go back. Again, my father casually said, "Do you like it here? Do you want to stay and continue your education here?" I said, "Sure, why not?" So that's how that happened. So this is when my search began. I didn't know where to look, right? What university to go and apply for.
Well, you had no guidance.
No guidance at all.
Yeah.
The only guidance I did have, so we lived about 35 miles east of downtown. So every time me and my father went to downtown, we took a bus. And on the route, there was this station where we used to change the bus. And that station happened to be in a college. That was the only college I knew, and it was only about 10 miles away. And I said, "Hey, that's a perfect fit, because if I get admission, I could just take the bus back and forth and be good."
Search was over.
Right. So I went in there, and I thought it's going to be a lengthy process. I walked in. 2 hours later, I came with admission and sponsorship, because you can't study unless you have the student visa. So all those things were settled.
In your culture, family has real importance, but it also has a lot of restrictions. Can you talk about how that played into your studying and then your career choices?
So what I did want to share, one thing about traditions, as you mentioned, and restrictions that we may have. One thing that happens in India and Pakistan, most of the Asian countries, that if you're going to school, whether it's just elementary or high school or even college, if you're single, you're not married, you don't have your own family, you don't move out of the house.
You stay at home.
You stay at home.
It's family.
Right, it's family. So I stayed with my aunt and uncle who were already here, my father's sister, and they were a great support for everything. So after about 3-4 years, when I was into college and working as well, there were discussions about, hey, maybe I want to move out, because most of my friends
we're not living with family.
Yeah, we're not living with family. So that became a big issue. The first time I mentioned, everyone's like, "Wait, there's something wrong? Is your aunt not taking care of you, or what is?"
Maybe a bit of an insult, really.
Kind of. You're right. It is an insult if you mention that. It became such a big issue. After 2 days, I dropped it. I was like, you know what?
Smart
that's
man.
Fine. Right. So I said, it's okay. It was just I wanted to experience living alone, which my friends were experiencing.
And they were modeling for you, and here
And they
you
were-
are, a young,
right.
impressionable person in a new culture, and you say, well, I want to be like my friends a little bit.
Right.
So how did you finally escape Los
Escape.
Angeles area?
All right. So then we talked about the journey from India to the United States, and I would say this was a journey as well, from LA to West Michigan, or Detroit at the time.
Mm-hmm.
After my graduation, I found work with a financial institution, and I was working there for about 2 years. And I found myself asking myself, like, is there something better for me? Should I be doing something different? And for that quest, I set out and I said, you know, I will take about a month off and go visit my friends who were living in Detroit at the time, which I did.
And
I
they were
took
also
off.
Indian friends.
They're actually, you'll be surprised, they were all Pakistani.
So when you were trying to escape from Southern California to someplace else, your aunt and uncle maybe gave you a pass because, oh, well, he's going to be with those good Pakistani boys.
Yes, so they knew from back from college, they used to visit.
Okay.
So they were comfortable with that. They said, yeah, sure, go ahead. Initially, I hadn't planned anything. I was like, I'm just going to go visit my friends and see how it feels. But a week later into it, I just loved it. I was with friends, living alone, which I always wanted to do, and just having fun, like experiencing the American way of life. And one of my friends, again, casually mentioned, why do you have to go back? I'm like, I don't, but I need a job. He said, oh, IT. So even though my degree is in IT, but I'm more like of a people person. So initially when I came out of college, I went into finance and management programs, but never in IT. I said, you know what? I don't think that interests me. What about finance? He said, you know, let me show you something. So what he showed me at the time was what you're making as a finance person coming out of college and what you would be making as an IT person. And I looked at their salary. I'm like, okay, sign me up, because it was a huge difference. And this was the year or a couple of years before the Y2K. So everybody was hiring at the time. And I applied, and no kidding, within 2 hours I had 4 offers. They're like, just come talk to us, and if everything works out, we'll give you. I explained to them I'm from California, I don't have a place. They were all willing to give me a package, come and just talk to us.
And now, did this a job offer actually give you permission to cut the family ties and come to Michigan? Did that satisfy auntie and uncle?
So I haven't talked about that yet. So first, they don't even know about this yet, that I'm looking for a job. So once I told them, I had to explain to them, this is what I studied for, and this is, I think, a career path for me, and it will work out for me. So they then understood.
Okay.
So one thing does happen traditionally as well in India. If you're living in one city after you graduate and you get a great offer which is in a different city, so they do allow you to travel.
But then you got recruited to West Michigan, and so you're getting to progressively smaller communities, and Zeeland, Michigan does not have the diversity of Los Angeles.
You're absolutely right.
So was that a culture shock?
So let me back up 15 years. So I've been with Herman Miller for 15 years. So all this happened 15 years ago. When you speak of diversity and inclusiveness, 15 years ago was not nearly where it is today. So things were different at the time. This was, I had been married to a beautiful wife, Zahabia. She's also from California, and we were starting a family, and we were looking for something different. At the time, I was working for a consulting company. So I wanted something more firm, like working for a company where you'd have some stability and package that lets you save and retire, 401k.
Sure.
So that's what I was looking for. And our choices was not to go back to LA because we had already settled here. But Chicago was top on the option, and maybe finding something in Detroit. The recruiter that I was working with, just after a couple of weeks talking to him, became a good friend, and he knew exactly what we were looking for. And he casually again mentions, hey, there's this company, furniture company in Zeeland, Michigan. I'm like, where? I'm not moving out of the country. They're like, no, Zeeland, Michigan, you didn't hear me.
Yeah.
I said, well, okay, tell me more about it. When I looked up, first thing was, nope, I'm not doing this. Nope, I'm not doing this. So I went back to the recruiter and I told him, I don't think this will work out. He said, for my sake, just drive there. It's a 2.5 hour drive, not big deal. and just check it out. When I first took an exit, first thing I noticed was there was a combine thing. It was just right in front of me. I'm like, oh, this is great.
This is rural.
Right. So I followed that, and fast forward to end of the day. Interviews went well. My experience, the first experience in the work environment was great. It was a furniture company, right?
Mhm.
So the furnitures and everything looked really nice.
Beautiful.
People were nice.
Yeah.
Completely against what I had an image in my mind going
Uh-huh.
into West Michigan, everything that I had read about. And I accepted the offer right there on the same day. My wife, so she was a little reluctant, but she said, I'll support your decision. First time she came out was a couple of weeks later to meet me after I had already started. And she said, I said, yeah, this is it. And so fast forward to about 15 years, and my wife, I would say, is happier than I am in this environment, this community.
That's awesome. We have to wrap up in just a minute, but talk briefly about the really good work that Herman Miller is doing in diversity and inclusiveness.
Okay, so everything that Herman Miller does under an umbrella of Better World, whether it's taking care of their people, whether it's taking care of the environment or the community. The reason I say that, because I've seen that over a period of 15 years. I have been involved in all three. Right now, I serve as the lead for the Asian IRT. IRT is Inclusive Resource Team. What we do is we work internally and externally. So we support our employees in their engagement and development, and then we support our community that we live and serve in.
And that's maybe a bit of an extension of the traditional affinity group, which is mostly internal to the organization.
Yes, so we have about 8 affinity groups. So we work with disability group, we have a veterans group, we have women's group, we have black group, and we have Asian and next generation group. So we all kind of have the same vision, making a place a better world, but we do little different things for our employees internally and externally.
Awesome. Final question, what has being an ethnic minority taught you about life and work and maybe the vision of Herman Miller?
So it's interesting you bring that up, life lessons. So people are looking for life lessons from, people who do this for a living and very professional. I will tell you this, in my 50 years of my life experiences, most of the life experiences I've gotten is from unexpected places. And then feel like you belong, that's something that I gave up a long time ago, and I'll tell you why. Because I just feel I belong everywhere.
Okay.
And I just feel like there is so much to do. I know we have talked about diversity, we've talked about inclusiveness. I think we should stop doing that. We should stop talking about equality and equity. We want to make sure that everyone has equal opportunity. We want to make sure that everyone actually has what they need to survive and live in this world, or in America.
Okay, awesome. We're going to have to leave it there. Time has flown by.
Okay,
But I want to thank you so much for coming and sharing your story with us.
No, I really want to thank you for not just having me on this, but also having this platform for all the Americans from different parts of the world. Notice I said Americans because I don't want to call them immigrants. They're Americans from different parts of the world living in this community, wanting the same thing that everyone wants. So thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you for joining us. If you're watching on TV, stay tuned for our following segments on information and culture. If you're watching us on the internet, I hope you will check out our other conversations with the impressive immigrants who make these United States a more inclusive place.
Because the question of what does it mean to be a Latino professional in a multicultural workplace was always there.
2 categories, race and gender, matches national statistics, then your organization is inclusive.